that had been posted publicly. I'm actually going to, since we're going to kind of move things around a little bit, there were some extra things that were included on this. I think we're going to, at least for the moment, move the item that was at the end, the Baker McDowell discussion, to the front and go ahead and kind of handle that mostly. And then we may, if we get time, we may either tackle some of these other things or decide to just bring those up at another meeting date. So that said, based on what I just explained, we can, I guess, adopt this agenda.
Motion approved.
So we have a motion by Mr. Bates and a second by Mr. Pennings to adopt that. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, that does go through there. I think we were going to go ahead and start, for the most part, with Dr. Register. I think was going to kick this off, and he can kind of hit on some of those other, I understand you may want to hit on some of those other things as well, but for discussion purposes, we'll probably stick to the facilities discussion for McDowell and Baker.
Okay, thanks. Good evening, everyone. It was good to walk through the buildings with you tonight. It's good to see you again. I'll be very brief because we had an extended conversation earlier, and I think all of the board members have heard that. I will expect some questions if you have any concerns hanging over from the presentation last time. I commend you for taking the next steps. That's really important. You're running against a timeline of presenting a capital outlay budget to your commission, and it's really important for you to take the next couple of steps. And one of the first of those is to come together as a board to develop a consensus on what you think the right approach is. You have two big pressures in front of you. You have the pressure of growth. That's addressed in the facilities plan that we presented, and also the challenge of dealing with older facilities. And you saw examples of that tonight as we did the walkthroughs. So I encourage you to move ahead to reach the consensus that you need to. I commend you for listening to the public tonight, and I'll look forward to hearing that also. So I'll sit down now, unless you have questions that you would like to ask now. I'll address those now or later.
Well, we can go ahead and start off there. I appreciate that, Dr. Register, and thank you for helping walk us through this process. Does anyone have any questions for Dr. Register at this time? Okay. Well, it looks like you get off easy on that one, so we'll move on to the next step. Dr. Marzak, did you have anything you wanted to add to this before we move into the kind of the public discussion part of this?
No, thank you for coming tonight. I'm excited to hear what people have to say to kind of give this board some advice and some ideas and hopefully some direction moving forward. So if it will please the chairman, I'm ready to hear what people in the audience have to say tonight.
Okay, sure does. So I guess we were going to keep this, this is a work session, so this is a little less formal. I know we're still up here behind the podium, which I hate, but we're going to keep it a little less formal. So what we were hoping to do is to just get some input from the public on this, on what we're talking about. I know you've probably seen the flyer and or had the calls come out to you. We didn't know if you had any questions or concerns. Basically what we wanted to lay out to the public was that these are some things that we're having to weigh ourselves to figure out what the next steps are. When we did this 10-year facilities report, we got some information, some of which was, I guess, surprising, and some of it wasn't surprising to us as board members. But what it left us with was trying to decide some steps to take to move this forward. A lot of things to decide, actually, and some issues with Baker and McDowell came up as far as what we could possibly do to address those. So with that being said, probably keep this, and again, I don't know how many people want to speak, and we can kind of adjust as we go, or if anybody does want to speak. I would hope somebody does. We would be interested just to keep it informal if you want to step forward, and we can have each person go one at a time. Try to keep it to, I would like to keep it for less than 5 minutes. If anybody really wants to speak that long, probably nobody does. But if you try to keep the time down, just state, and again, I think talking with Chairman Bates on this, we want to try to keep this focused on tonight, the discussion focused on the facilities for these two buildings, because that is what we're looking at for these schools, is the facility side of this. So if anyone has any comments, if you just want to raise your hand and step forward to the microphone and speak and share your opinions on those, we'd be welcome to hear it.
Well, I'll say something.
Come on up.
Come on up.
And I'm not a speaker.
Mr. Chairman, could we get their name and where they live?
That would be helpful.
I'm Linda Tupper, And I'm Linda Tupper, and, well, I live in Columbia here. And I just wanted to say, well, where else? 1845 Grace Drive.
Perfect.
Okay. And just that, you know, you all got to come and see Baker, and I hope that you saw that maybe it didn't look quite as dilapidated as you may have believed. We still feel like it has a few more good years left in it. We realize that, you know, there's some problems with it, but we do love our school, and, you know, we're proud of it. And we hope maybe we can come to, you know, a good, nice decision that will help Baker in our community. And I don't know, I think that's kind of it. But I wanted someone to say something positive about it.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
you know, okay, thank you.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Hi, good evening. My name is Lee Jones. I am a parent of 2 and one day 3 students at McDowell Elementary. I want to start by saying that my children are 4th generation McDowell students. Their grandparents went there, their great-grandparents went there, my husband, and now they are going to McDowell. My mother-in-law also taught at McDowell for 20 years, and my great-grandmother also taught there during World War II. So to say that McDowell has a heavy place in my heart is an understatement.
Lee, address.
Yeah.
Where do you live?
Oh, sorry. I
That's
live
okay.
in Rolling Fields, Columbia, Tennessee.
Number?
1004. Sorry,
There you go.
Rolling Field Circle. Oh, excuse me. I think we all know that the walls of McDowell are old and they need a lot of attention. And whether that be a new building or a renovation, I think what's most important to think of when deciding whether we do a bigger facility or separate facilities is the children that go to these facilities. McDowell has a strong community that, in the fact that my children are minorities there, they do not bring home a white bag of groceries every Friday. They don't have parents. There's a lot of parents that, you know, don't have 2 parents to come home to. They're a minority in that. And I think that our teachers and our small school give them what they don't have at home. It's not uncommon for most, if not all, of the teachers to know every student that walks down those halls. And I think that's important, and it scares me that maybe some of these students may be lost in the shuffle if there's 800-some students in a school. So I know that things come down to dollars and cents, but I do want you to think of these students and their community and these families that this will affect. So thank you.
Thank you. Come on up.
Sabrina Tank, Columbia, Tennessee, 2102 Bennett Court. Well, I'm actually a staff member at Baker, and I'm an assistant there, and I've got a son that goes there too. And I second what she said. He would be absolutely devastated if it was a bigger school. I think he would get lost. I think a lot of the kids that I know would get lost in it. And like she said, everybody knows everybody. You know, we're just like a family. And I think that if you build a bigger school and put everybody together like that, I think that a lot of kids are going to get lost in the shuffle. And you know, what happens if you build the bigger school and say the county gets bigger, like more people move in, what happens then? Do you build onto that bigger school, or do you build onto the existing schools and go from there? You fix the buildings now and build the existing schools bigger. So that's what I've got. That's all I've got.
Ma'am, do you think if you built a school, say 700 or 800 students, but you had separate wings for, say, classes, kindergarten through 4 and so on and so forth, would help the situation you're talking about?
Not necessarily, because if you got more people moving into the community, you've got overcrowding in the classrooms. You're probably going to have smaller classrooms because it's a bigger school. So you know, I would say go ahead and just fix up the existing schools, make them better. That's my take on that.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
My name's Sean McGee. That's my wife Megan. We're at 303 Parkview Drive. We're a Baker family. Moved down here 5 years ago. I'm a paramedic here in the county. What I've noticed in being here is the way that Baker is a family. When we drop our son off, Officer Shepard knows him by name. He hugs Officer Shepard every day. That's his first go-to thing. You know, he doesn't start his day until he does. And echoing what she said, that you take a bigger school, I went to a high school in Franklin that I had 987 people in my senior class. We were just sand in a glass. They didn't have the people, they didn't have the staff, the guidance counselors, things to help us out, you know, to get direction for every student. When we go to Baker, our son is exceptionally gifted in the fact that he's kindergarten. In kindergarten, he was passing the 4th grade reading words like that, no problem. You know, they were able, with having smaller classes, they're able for the teacher to identify that and challenge him, make him stronger. Miss Quirk did a great job, had a stack of books that only he would read, only he could in kindergarten. Now Miss Ellis is doing the same thing. He's just on top of it so much. And I feel if you merge the two, you're gonna get that effect. Same effect of putting sand in an hourglass and watching it come down. Our kids are gonna fail. We have one there, and we have one that's on the way. So we're going to be another Baker family. Like I said, I've only been down here for 5 years, but truly seeing the way the Baker family is, the way people rally, the way we help each other. And over the summer, we saw how things can get fixed. We had the church group come in and fix the basketball court. We can pull together and help do some of this stuff, but obviously the big capital stuff we can't. You know, I would just like to see it stay. You know, if we do like what they did with Central, build on during the summer, change out, you know, so that you don't disrupt the flow too much, I think that would be the greatest thing. Because like I said, trying to merge everybody together, and what she said is eventually you're going to max that out too. Columbia is growing way too fast. You see, you know, look at the subdivisions you have popping up all over the place. You're going to max out these schools very quickly, even if you do build giant megaplexes. You're just going to lose everything, and we're going to lose our kids.
I mean, there's no doubt that I think that we're going to need to have another school built. I mean, Columbia, and I'm very sorry for the ones that have grown up here. I'm a transplant from here, and I judged Baker. I did. I refused. I kicked and fought to move to Murray County, to be honest. And we have been in our house for 3 years, and I fight for our little city. Sorry, emotional. I'm 8 months pregnant, so I'm crying. But I have fought. I have friends that won't even come down here because, unfortunately, Columbia does get that reputation. Our little city is growing so much, and I'm so proud to be a Baker parent. Caden does exceptionally well there. Everybody has been amazing, and I would hate for that to end for him. And I do think, you know, having that small community school does make a huge difference. I mean, he sees people out and about, and he's like, oh, I know that person, and it's somebody from a different class, you know, different grade. So I'm proud of our school, and I don't want to see it go away.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm April Johnson, 3841 Buck Matthews Road, Columbia. I'm also the librarian at Baker and a 13-year teacher at Baker. Baker was my home straight out of college, and I taught third grade there for 7 years before I moved to the library. I know that, like any house, it needs work. And We haven't always gotten the work done that we've needed to, but that doesn't mean that you demolish the history and the reputation that both of our communities have. Both of our schools have a very strong reputation in Columbia, and they're so well established that they both have their place. They don't need combining because there needs to be due respect for both places. Like Ms. McGee said, we all know her child, but we know them all. We know what they need. We know the ones that need food on the weekends, just like the ones at McDowell. We send those things home. Our parents know that they can come and ask for the things that they need from our school, and they'll get them. And with a school with 800 plus kids, that's hard to do. That's hard to provide what all the kids need in one facility. When you look at the numbers, building an 800 student school, we're going to be at capacity in 5 years. And even doing the rezoning that was proposed in the original 10-year plan and sending a third of our kids to Woodard, then we're at capacity in 7 to 10 years. And then we go back into, well, what do we do now? I sure wish we still had a school in the middle of Woodard, in the middle of where McDowell is. That was the original plan, was to go where McDowell was. I know that a lot of theories have been thrown around that have disrupted both of our communities, but I appreciate you taking the time to come to our buildings today. And I think, as Ms. Tupper said, you saw that we're not in as bad shape as what some numbers might say. We need some upkeep, but we still have a place in our community.
Thank you.
Anna Kate Woody, 102 South Bigsby Drive, here in Columbia. And this is Scarlett May, and she is at the same place. I grew up at Baker. I have a 40-year-old brother that went to Baker as well. We have grown up in this small little town, and it is getting bigger. Scarlett has been there since pre-K. She was a mentor in the pre-K class, loves it, and wants her sister, who is 2.5, to go there as well to continue on the tradition of the small little school. Everybody, all of the teachers know my child, and they talk to her, and she knows everybody and is friendly with everybody. And it would be horrible to just lump everybody together where we didn't know anybody. And I think that would be bad. And the convenience of having a child that will be at Whitthorne and then at Central, and also having the elementary school there as well. It's a convenience for all parents to just, if they have kids in different schools, the convenience there is to pick everybody up at once and not have to drive several places to pick your kids up. So, and Scarlett wanted to.
I've been going there since pre-K, and I really like it. And it's a small school, and I know everybody. So if you put 2 schools together and make it a really big school, you're not going to know anybody.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
You really have to give your name right. No, that's not a problem. Joel Love. I live at 902 Azalea Drive here in Columbia. I'm the PTO president at Baker. We made a decision a few years ago. I've got a son in 4th grade. I've also got a daughter now in 1st grade. When we were deciding where we were going to send our kids to school, we had to decide between private school, moving somewhere else in the county, or Baker, and looking at all the different schools. And what we decided was that we wanted to stay within the county. We wanted to give the county schools a chance because we thought where our tax dollars are going to, it may as well take advantage of it from that standpoint. We also decided what we would do is go toward the school and actually see what was actually going on. And I think that's very important because I think what you're going to find, to no fault of anybody, is that everybody loves their school. I think everybody who's going to get up here tonight, you have everybody from McDowell is going to say they love their school, everybody from Baker is going to say they love their school, and I think you're going to find that out if we were to have a vote. what I found out was very simple. My kids felt very safe, very secure from going into a smaller environment. There's a reason why I think a lot of us look at it from a standpoint of sending our kids to a smaller school. They feel like they will be part of a small family. Sometimes if you get a bigger classroom and there's too many kids, they feel like they get lost. And I think there's a reason why people decide to move here into Columbia and choose one of the smaller schools instead of moving to Spring Hill and go to where you have a bigger school. Because I think sometimes we do look at the numbers and we sit there and say, we want that type of situation for our kids. I don't know if that's right or wrong. I don't know if that makes any dollars or cents to anybody's matter, but I do think that it does come into play when people look at where you want to actually send your children to. You like the idea of a small school. I know it comes down to the effect that over the years, maintenance has not been done the way it should have been done at either school. And we're paying for the price of that at this point. And really, what you're faced with is nothing that you inherited, it's what you got left over. And it's not an easy decision to make. I think there's benefits at moving it to Baker, and I would be amiss not to mention those few things. I think there's more land. I think the advantage of there, if you do to go in that direction, traffic patterns, because I travel many times through town, and to me, it's a whole lot easier getting around Baker than it is around McDowell during the time of day. I think you're going to have concerns either way you go from both standpoints. I do think there's some advantages to having all three schools in one campus, if you're going to look at it from a campus aspect. But at the same time, I know nobody would want to see either school go away. I think everybody loves their school. I think everybody would sit here and say the reason why they've got their kids in the school that they're at is because of the situation, the teachers, the family, everything that you've already heard tonight. My kids love Baker. My kids absolutely love Baker. They love the principals. They love the teachers. There's never a discussion that comes into their mind, do we go somewhere else next year, because they already feel they're at home. They know their friends. They know their teachers. They know their aides. They know the janitor. They know everybody at that school. And when you go into a bigger school, that's what you're going to start to have the effect of, people not knowing each other. You're talking about keys to success. A key to success is to be able to let kids thrive in the position of where they're at. And right now, kids are thriving at both schools. And I think you've got to take that into consideration. If you want them to succeed, look at what they're doing already. Look at their test scores. See how they're thriving. What would that do if you put two schools together? How would that upset the balance of what's going on? That's something to consider. I appreciate your time tonight. I could go on. I preach sometimes. You don't want me up here for 45 minutes. I can assure you of that.
All right, thank you.
I've John Micah Clanton, 2137 Spring Lake Drive in Spring Hill, Tennessee. And I'm the current principal at Baker Elementary. So, thank you for letting me talk. I spoke with most of you tonight as you came and visited the school. I won't go over all those points again. I may highlight some of them. But, and so some of these things that I'm about to say are not written down, so we may get off the rails real quick. But I was an administrator for 9 years at Whitthorne Middle School, which is 900 and some kids. I think this year they're up over 1,000. Every year at Whitthorne, we dealt with people not wanting to come to Whitthorne because they were coming from smaller schools, and they were paranoid. Not paranoid, maybe that's a bad word to use, but they were very hesitant coming from a smaller school going into a larger school. And I think those are some of the same problems we're hearing tonight. And they're very legitimate concerns. When, I just lost my train of thought. When I went from Whitthorne, 900 and some odd students, down to Baker, it was to 310, 340 with all kids there, talking about pre-K and CDC and all what we have there. It's a very welcoming, it's very warm, and I'm sure McDowell has that same atmosphere. I've not been to McDowell other than one time. But I can speak for Baker, coming from Whitthorne. It was like I had all of 5th grade at Whitthorne in one little school, and it was much easier as an administrator to manage. When you think about school safety, of course, I have problems remembering my own faculty's names, but so I don't know all the students' names yet, but I know a lot of them, and that's just nice. I'm able to speak with parents, interact with parents, and there's a lot of things that go unnoticed, that don't get mentioned in a report, that make Columbia and Baker and McDowell a nice place to be for kids. And at that young age, they need to feel secure. They have a hard time getting out of the car and coming into school unless it's welcoming, unless we're able to build relationships, because that's the first thing we know, is that we have to build relationships in order to get them to grow. So a small school definitely advocates for that. But as an administrator, that is, I would lean more to having a smaller school just for that intimate climate. If I'm charged with an 800 student school, I will do my best to make those kids still, I will have relationships with them, and our teachers will have relationships with them. That's what we're in this business for, is for the relationship aspect of it. So you guys have a lot of, there's going to be some hard decisions. I know that. I encourage us to all communicate. Communicate openly, transparently, everything on the table. And I think that'll help everybody in this process. Thank you.
Actually, real quick, just one second. Mr. Dudley, did you have something to add?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Can somebody tell me how many buses serve the McDowell? 4? Okay. I found out that 3 serve the Baker, and so I just wanted to ask that. Thank you.
We have 3 school buses, and we have a special ed bus that comes earlier, and then we have the Tiny Tots bus. But the big school bus, I have 3.
Did you want to come up? Come on. Sure.
Get my ticker going of where I live. 907 West 7th Street, and I'm Laura Truelove. My most important role is that I'm a mom of 3, and I have Wesley and Jack, who are at Whitthorne, and I have Emma, who is currently still at McDowell. So I've been at McDowell as a parent since 2009. So I guess a lot of the teachers might think it's time for me to go. A lot of young parents coming in. I just wanted to stand before you and thank you for your time. I know you have a lot of decisions to make, and I appreciate all of the effort and your thought process about it. And adding voice tonight to what I've already heard and that you've heard. But McDowell is very important to our community, and I hear the same strength in tone from the parents and the administrators from Baker. Talking personally, McDowell, being a small school, has been such an advantage for my children, has made a huge impact on their lives and my life. And to the extent that Jack, my middle one, who is 11 and currently in 5th grade, and I so love Whitthorne. My sons have thrived there, so I appreciate that school. But Jack came out first 9 weeks from Whitthorne, 5th grader, and he made the AB honor roll. And the first thing I thought of was to email Mr. McNeese, who was the principal at the time, and share that news, because those teachers and I have such a strong bond together, they would understand why I was emailing them. And I know y'all will too as parents and having interest in the school board. But that was it. I mean, he got in the car and held up his report card, and maybe you want to hear your child's all A honor roll. And I have a child who's straight A honor roll, and I'm not here to say that to brag. What I'm saying is my immediate thought was of McDowell, even though Jack was at Whitthorne. I wanted to take the time for them to understand that we know it takes a process to get them to where they are. And he's thriving at Whitthorne. And that is fully, in part, or in the large majority, to the administration, the teachers that have been there, that have stayed there, the new ones that have come in. I have been so fortunate to have McDowell in my life, and I may be in a very small group, but I chose to move on to West 7th Street because of McDowell. Because of McDowell. Because of the size of McDowell. My parents attended McDowell. My grandparents attended McDowell. One of my grandmother's mothers was a cook in the cafeteria when there was no cafeteria. The moms would come in and make the food for the students. The community that is there is precious. The children that attend McDowell, as I'm sure Baker, I know I'm all about McDowell, and I know that the Baker families feel the same way. It is the community aspect of it that has been so wonderful. And I really am going to be upset when Emma graduates here in a few months from McDowell. I'll probably be out in the front lawn of McDowell in August, wandering about thinking, shouldn't I be here? It is a very special part of my family's history. And so all the decisions before you, I respect that you're in the position that you're in. When you do look at what it comes down to into numbers and into the children, I know you take all of that into respect and into your thought process and into your decisions. But the faces and the children that I've gotten to know, the teachers, my children will be affected for the rest of their lives, and they will remember forever the experience they had at McDowell. So, I'd like to take a moment and thank all of the people that make McDowell run on a daily basis. I don't know that they get as much admiration as they should. I'm not speaking from y'all. It's just day in and day out. There's a lot that goes on. I'm at McDowell quite a bit, as I'm sure a lot of you as parents are in your own schools. But it is a special facility. And bottom line to me, whether it's remodeling, refurbishing, doing some repairs, building a whole new McDowell, I would like to see the community aspect kept for both McDowell and Baker. So I'd like to add my voice to that. If that were to not be the situation, if they were combined, I would like for logistics to be a part of the planning. Because like I said, I have two sons that do go to Whitthorne, and you're dealing with one traffic light. So if you're going to add an influx of another 400 kids into that direction, or vice versa, I don't know why I think it would be towards Baker. I see it more of a campus mindset. But if it was, I would, and I'm not saying that you weren't thinking logistics. I just think as you see the growth going on in the county, the transparency part of it to the community, please lay out those plans as well. And if it were to move forward in that path, I would probably be on the opposite side. Many friends and I know outside, but I would be on the opposite side fighting for a community school. I think that is of utmost importance for both McDowell and Baker. So thank you for your time. I appreciate it, and I appreciate what y'all do. Thank you.
I'm Alyssa Anderson, 1918 Farmington Court here in Columbia. Couple of things. When my mom moved us to Columbia when I was younger, we came from not only an elementary school that was like Baker, but a middle school. And had we went to high school there, it would have been like that too. All of the schools were small, and it all felt like a community. We were all friends, our parents were friends, and when she moved us to Columbia, I went from a small school like that straight into Whitthorne, and it was culture shock for me. I was lost and I was terrified, and I don't want our children to have, as I have a child that will start kindergarten next year, and I don't want her to walk into school and be scared because there's so many people, because not only is she 5, but she has some sensory processing issues, some speech issues, and for her to walk into a school that huge, it's going to terrify her until we are able to get her through that and over it. And so I'm going to echo what they've all said. A small community-type school is extremely important in growing kids to develop relationships and, be able to feel safe and secure and happy. Also, when my son started pre-K, we were in Mount Pleasant. It'll be 2 years in May since we've moved to Columbia. And when we first moved up here, I homeschooled my kids because I didn't want to put them in school in Columbia. We came from Mount Pleasant, which was also a small community school, and they were wonderful. My son was ahead, my daughter was behind, and they catered to both. And it was amazing. And I was afraid that putting my kids in school in Columbia, they would both fall through the cracks because it wouldn't be recognized that he's writing at a 6th grade level, or that she is going to start kindergarten and she barely knows the names of her letters. And so she begged me to go back to school. Mom, please put me back in school, because she loved it. And when I finally decided to start considering it, I called, and Mr. Parks sat down with me, and I said, okay, these are her test scores that Murray County School has done. These are the test scores that we've got from outside of school, from private testing, da-da-da-da-da. This is where she is. This is what she knows. How can you assure me that she's not going to fall through the cracks and that she is going to be successful? And he and I had a very long conversation, about it, and it was him that helped me to decide that it would be okay to put my kids at Baker. And that they love it. They do. And my 5-year-old, who will start there next year, she'll say, I want to go to Baker, like Sissy. I want to go to Baker. And if I say we have to go to the school, she'll say, are we going to see Miss Melissa, who is the clerk in the office? She's already learning the names of people there, and she doesn't even go there yet. She hears the other kids talk about it, and she's so excited. And when I started Aubrey, that would be my middle daughter, there in kindergarten, she also had Miss Quirk. And she started there, and like I said, she barely knew the names of her letters. And by the end of kindergarten, she was reading. It was amazing because they worked hard, and they kept an eye, and they didn't let her fall through. So I come from the opposite of them, where their child was ahead, because mine was very far behind. And thanks to the amazing staff at Baker, the RTI, she is on level where she's supposed to be with her reading, which is huge for me because I didn't think I would ever see that. And it's really nice as a parent to be able to go in, and the teachers know who your child is. And like they said, Officer Shepard or Mr. Clanton or Mr. Parks is out front every morning to greet the kids, which is super. But if you're having to haul 800 kids into a school, that's not going to be as possible, in my opinion. That's pretty much all. Thank you.
Thank you.
I am Kim Finn. I'm at 2014 Williamsport Pike. So I kind of have a unique view on Baker. I am a mother, My husband and I moved to Tennessee about 20 years ago. We didn't know anything about the school systems here in Murray County, except for what we heard as well. By the grace of God, we were put into the zone for Baker, and my son is in 4th grade, and I have a kindergartner as well, so I have kids on both ends of the school. Sean flourished in school. He's a great student, thanks to the teachers. But last year, I became a faculty member as well. I'm an RTI teacher this year. So I always knew that the teachers were wonderful, but I thought maybe going behind the scenes, seeing it from that side of the standpoint, that I might be soured on it or think it's a little bit different behind the curtain. But something that has just really warmed my heart is that it's everything that I thought from behind the scenes. I know that being a teacher, there's a lot of red tape, a lot of hoops you have to jump through, a lot of things being pulled left and right, but these ladies and gentlemen at this school, Baker, are exactly as I thought they were. They're exactly as I had hoped. So that's my viewpoint on it. So thank you, first of all. But second of all, I echo everything they're saying about community and small schools. I believe in that as well. And I know you all are good people. I just encourage you, when you make this choice, to remember it's not just about money. It's not just about numbers. It's not just about we have to be somewhere really important in 10 years. I know all that's true. It is about money. It is about where we're going to be in 10 years. But it is so much about my children. I'm a very progressive thinker. I like to think creatively outside of the box. I want to move forward. But yet I'm also very nostalgic. So to think of Baker or one of the other schools being torn down or disbanded or not have a school by that name, that just breaks my heart too. So if you can find that balance to where you're remembering that these are children and employees and people that are running the schools that are going to be affected by the choice that you make, just try to remember what we said tonight and make the choice you think is especially right for the children. And if you do that, then you have my full support. Thank you.
Thank you.
Regina Perry, 1422 Highview Drive. So I'm kind of unique because I sort of have a heart in both of these places, because my first year of teaching, I started at Baker a long time ago. And so a little bit of my heart is there, and it always will be. And then I've been at McDowell for 20 years, so a big part of my heart is definitely there. And I've been sitting back there listening to what everybody is saying, and I agree with a lot of the things that have been said. One of the things that I would like to say is that I know we have great teachers at Baker and we have great teachers at McDowell, and no matter what, no matter where our kids end up, we're going to make sure they succeed, because that's who we are and that is what we do. However, I do want to encourage you to drive around both communities, drive around the Baker community. I thank you so much for coming to our schools tonight and taking the time to do that and walk around. But I would encourage you also to drive around these communities, see the children that are living there, because both of these schools have a very strong history. Both of these schools have a very strong generation, and both of these communities need their school. It's very important to them. So I can't speak about what it's like to teach at a big school or attend a big school. I can speak on the difference that it makes to have a smaller class size, and I can speak on the fact that I attended Culleoka School, and I'm a product of that small school, because at that time I think I had 52 people in my graduating class. So I don't necessarily feel like that bigger is always better. But my first principal was Linda Blackman, and one of the things that she always told me as a teacher was, whatever decision you make, always ask yourself if you are doing it, if you are making the decision, the right decision, the very best decision that you can for your students. And so I know that as a school board that you all will do that, and I just want to encourage you to do that, that that you make the decision that you're going to make and that you ask yourself, is this the very best thing that we can do for our students? Is this the very best thing that we can do for our school community? Because your school community is what supports and drives your school a great deal. So thank you so much for the opportunity for us to speak tonight and for visiting our schools and for your time and for what you do as a board for our students. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Well, we can also, if anyone else may still want to speak, but do any of the board members have anything they want to say or discuss any of this or consider some of these? Mr. Bates.
I just want to thank everyone for coming. These are difficult decisions that we have to make, and we have to weigh a lot of different factors, but it is good to have input from the particular communities where some of these decisions, who they may ultimately affect. And so really appreciate the input. Thank you.
Thank y'all for being here tonight. This has been an issue that has really tugged at my heart for over a year now, because while I represent McDowell, my son actually goes to Baker. So I get to see Officer Shepard and Mr. Clayton and Mr. Parks every day. And I know the first thing Jackson wants to do when he gets out is, go give somebody a high five. So, and I know that that exists at McDowell too. I've had many friends, some of whom actually have taught at Baker but came from McDowell, and their heart is still at McDowell because they know what a special place it is as well. So the community aspect is something that I see at both of these schools for sure. I guess the part that I am somewhat struggling with is what is the right number, because we are experiencing growth, and I'm looking at the projections, and it looks like for each of these schools they're going to exceed their capacity, so something's going to have to be done for them. But I'm hearing, I don't want a bigger school, I don't want an 800-person school. Is there a 500, 600? What's too big for these communities to make it to where you don't feel like you're sand going through the hourglass? Because I think that is a valid point. Now, I will say, when we start talking about Culleoka, I always think of Culleoka as being a community school and being a small school, but then when I look at our numbers, it's 1,000 kids. And so for a kindergartner, I have a friend that had their child go there as a kindergartner this year and was like, my kindergartner's going to a school with 1,000 kids, including 12th graders that are, 2 feet taller than them. So, I mean, that's kind of the dynamic that we have in our system, and that's kind of what I'm wrestling with. The other part that I'm wrestling with is the money side, and it came up for me last year when we were doing the budget process, because one of the things that was listed on there, if we didn't meet our budget, was to get rid of assistant principals at schools that had less than 600 students. And Miss Matlock was retiring last year. David Parks was the person that I knew at Baker that I went in and would talk to a lot of times. And so I wanted Jackson, my son that was starting kindergarten this year, to have David Parks in that building. And I can't imagine him not being in that building. But I think the thing that we as a community have to understand is, for him to be in that building with less than 600 kids, the state doesn't give us money for that. The community has to give us money for that. The county has to give us money for that. And I'm okay with that. I'm just saying that if that's what we want, then we've got to make sure that we let the people that are the funding body know that. So I'm not opposed to either of these schools having their own community school, but I do want to hear some input as to what is too big to fail. And then also, is everybody committed to also, I mean, it's great for y'all to be here, but we have we're one piece of the funding body, and we really get most of our money from the state, from the feds, and from the county. And the county is really ultimately going to determine a lot of this, because we do have so many schools that have been neglected. And I feel like when I walk through Baker, I feel like it looks great. I really do. But it's an old school too, and I recognize that it was built about the same time that Central was, and we didn't gut Central, we didn't renovate Central, and I don't want anybody to think, well, we're just going to refurbish it like we did Central. Central was a rebuild, essentially. And so I want us to have that communication with y'all and be completely upfront and frank, because I don't want anybody to think, oh, well, I want my school to be renovated. I mean, I don't think McDowell can be renovated. Now, can McDowell be rebuilt? Yeah, I think it can be. But then we've got to deal with what the cost is and how big that needs to be. So I'll just kind of throw that back out to y'all and just let y'all know what I'm wrestling with as a board member, because I'm really open and I appreciate the input that y'all are giving us, and I think that all of the concerns are valid. I just think that that's kind of where we as a community and where Murray County has to decide where they want to go. Because we've got a lot of different strengths, and how we choose to accentuate those strengths, I think, is something that the whole community has to decide, and not one piece here and one piece there. And it needs to be the county making that decision, and the whole county getting behind. If we want smaller elementary schools, I am all for that. But let's make sure that, we as a board recently made a decision to add on to a 600-person school in Spring Hill to make it 800. I will tell you, I didn't vote for that. But we were faced with growth as well. So it's a balancing act, and that's just kind of what we're all struggling with. So if anybody is smarter than me, please share with me how we make this work so that we can serve both your communities, because they're both great communities and they both have a place in this county and serving the kids. And I don't want to lose sight of the kids, and I don't want it to come down to finances. But like everything else, it is a part of making that overall decision. So how we figure that out and how we weigh all that out, we just need your help. So thank you for being here, because that is the first step.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Parker. Any other board members have anything to add on that? Okay. Anybody else from the audience out here want to add anything further to this? Okay. I do just want to echo some of what Ms. Parker said. This is, and I feel confident I can speak for most of the other board members. This is not something we take lightly. There are times when we're able to sit up here and make some decisions and that are pretty easy to make, that are able to. They're just numbers, and we can look at them like they're just numbers, and they're really simple. And we don't think too much about them, and we probably go home and don't think about them ever again. But then there's times where we have to look at things, and they're not easy. There's times when we look at what maybe the numbers say one thing, but we realize that it isn't just the numbers, and we do realize that. And I know personally, and I'm sure the rest of my board members will be shaking their heads, there's things we take home and we chew on hours and hours at a time. And we ask friends for help on what to do about them. And we try to figure out anything we can to, like Ms. Parker said, find the magical answer that just pops up and solves everything perfectly. And I think this is one of those issues where we have to really kind of struggle with them. I know I personally do. I have some of the same concerns she does about size of schools and what it means for a community and how that fits into a community. And I think the other board members have some concerns about that too. And again, and I know, and to be fair, it is something that I hate, having it come down to numbers, but at the end of the day, a lot of what we have to do, unfortunately, comes down to that, because I guess it's almost like in my own family. There's only so many things I can do with what I've got coming in, and I can't magically create more revenue to come in sometimes. I wish I could. I'm sure everyone does. But that does make it difficult. But that doesn't mean we just, that's the only factor. Sometimes if it's the right thing to do, maybe we need to push harder and get the community behind a decision of going a different direction that maybe isn't exactly what the numbers say we need to do. But that is a discussion I'm glad we're starting to have in this county. Something I think I'm so glad to have people come tonight to share. I know it's not easy to come up here and step up to that microphone and share, and I'm glad quite a few people were able to do that. It was very helpful for us to hear what people say. But again, with what Ms. Powers said, I do agree. I personally am struggling with the size of schools, and this kind of goes bigger than just these two schools, to be honest. But as we look at facilities in this county, I would definitely encourage anybody, if not tonight, then later on, share with the board members and with Dr. Marzek what you think about the size of our schools or what you think is right. It may be easier to fire off an email later or a phone call. That may be a little more convenient. But I'd be interested in what people think, especially people that maybe worked in both schools or been in different sizes of schools. That was very helpful to have the perspective of that, because it's something I struggle with. Again, with what we just did in addition in Spring Hill, we're looking at building some more schools in the Spring Hill area that are going to be more than likely pretty large schools. And I'm not sure how I feel about that. And they're going to be across the street from my house. So it's definitely an impact for me. And I'm not sure what the right answer is. I see benefits to some of the smaller schools. I see the necessity of some of the larger schools, but my son is currently at Marvin Wright with 650 some students at this time, and I feel like he's had a pretty good experience there. But maybe it could be better if it was a smaller school. I just don't know. So definitely I would encourage anybody to share with us tonight or as we continue through this process what you think of some of these, of what the decisions we're having to make. Ms. Kinzer?
I'll just be brief. This is really hard. It's really hard. And when she was up there and said she was sorry she had to cry, I leaned over to Miss, I said, I think I'm going to cry too. I have to say, I mean, some of you know me as a high school teacher at a big school. And I graduated from a big school. I've never had any experience in elementary. My hat has always gone off to elementary teachers because I just couldn't do it. But I am so impressed with both of these faculties and schools and these parents that are reaching out to each other and supporting each other in this and knowing that this is a difficult decision. It just says a lot for the teachers and what they've done. McDowell really needs to be replaced. You know that. But my goodness, such great things going on in a really sick building is amazing. Baker, gosh, what can I say? 2 grandchildren gone through there. I've spent a lot of time there. So I just want to thank you all for letting us come and then coming here tonight and sharing with us and knowing how hard a decision this has got to be. And but know, too, it'll be a decision of our hearts, for sure.
Thank you, Ms. Kinzer. Mr. Pennings.
I too want to thank you all for being here. And I know I graduated from a school where there were 6 children in my 8th grade class, and I went to 500 as my freshman class, so I know where you're coming from. But it's great that you came here, but it's like Ms. Parker says, a lot of it boils down to money too. Say it costs $30 million to replace McDowell and $10 million to remodel Baker. Total of $30,000, $40,000, $40 million. But you can build and combine the schools for $10 million less. Unfortunately, a lot of times that is what our funding body looks at. So I encourage you to let people in the community know, let your county commissioners know, let your state representatives know how you feel about keeping smaller schools so we can do what's economically possible and what you want us to do. Because believe us, we're in here for the children. They don't pay us enough to do this for any other reason.
Dr. Marcy.
Okay, so I do have a follow-up. Mr. Breed and I were able to talk to, if you remember the last 2 weeks ago when Dr. Register was here, we talked about a software program called Thought Exchange. So I did follow up with them. They said that they're willing for a trial period to give us the software base package for free. But since we're looking at polling 2 different school communities, that's a multiple engagement period. They classify it as a 6-week period. They said they wouldn't do it less than that. So there's a period of time open up where anybody in the community of Baker or McDowell can go in and say whatever they think. So a lot of the things that you guys said tonight are things that you would enter into that software program. The company then disaggregates that data and creates kind of like the gallery walkthrough that you did with Dr. Register online. So as each of you log in, you'd get 5 stars. And whatever the most prevailing thoughts were, such tonight I'm hearing a smaller school, keep it small, community school, you'd be able to take your digital stars and put them to what you thought was important. And then they would disaggregate that and give that information to the board to say through multiple engagements, this is what the community is telling you that you need, a decision that you need to make. Because I'm sure there's a lot of parents that wanted to be here tonight that couldn't for either sports or the weather prevented it, or maybe they didn't have transportation, but they still have an input and they still have something that they want to say about the school community. This would give them the opportunity. We could host banks of computers at each of the schools. If you didn't have a computer at home, you could come in during this time and you could put your input in. But Thought Exchange is willing to work with us on that. It's $2,500 per school. So it would be $5,000 with the free software package to begin with, just to see what you guys think about moving forward. They said generally a school system at our size usually does anywhere between 3 and 4 engagements per year. So we could definitely focus on Dr. Register's facility impression, and then just have that data just continually brought back to you at multiple times throughout the year. But they said if you're ready and you want to make a move, they're ready to begin immediately. But it would be based on board decision, which means we'd probably have to do something Thursday night, which means you guys would probably have to allow us to add it to the board agenda Thursday night. But they're ready to help us out if you guys want to do that.
I do want to thank everyone here who's taken time to come. I see a lot of familiar faces, and I have a connection with a lot of y'all. And I mean, as parents that I see at the ball fields or at church, like I know how invested y'all are in your children, and these communities. I get it, and I do want to offer that I heard a lot of passion and a lot of concerns about, well, if it's a 800 school, like I know what this is going to look like and how it's going to impact my child, and I do believe that with all my heart. However, I think some of you know I've been very invested in Brown, which is an underserved school, and that was our community. All my kids went there, and that was all I knew, and we had a situation arise where we have now made a change, but I was sure that our family was going to fall apart when our community changed, but we landed in a great spot. We are at Baker, but my son came home from school, and that's what good teachers do. Our environment changed, but my son is getting a great education. He has found a new community, and I think that's what kids do. He soared, and I was still a wreck. So I do want to offer as a parent, change is hard, and especially when this is our community and our kids. We care about nothing more than we care about our kids, and I understand where everyone is coming from, but we are faced with hard decisions, with limited resources, factors we can't control like the county commission. So I really have a heart for how much we care for our communities, but teachers do a great job with kids. I genuinely believe that's why teachers teach, because they care about kids, and even the environment may look different. Our kids are still going to be in good hands. So thank y'all so much for coming, and I want what's best for every child of every family in this room.
Okay. Any other board members have anything to say on this? Again, thank you everyone for coming for this part of it. Since we kind of changed the agenda a little bit, I'm not sure if we would want to make everyone stay for anything else. I'm open to the other board members. If you guys want to wrap this up, maybe set another meeting time to discuss the other issues that are on the agenda so that we can have some time to kind of think about this and let this stand on its own. I see some heads nodding. We could take a motion from someone. Okay, so we have a motion and a second to go ahead and adjourn this meeting. And as a formality there, we'll probably I'll get with Superintendent Marzak, and we will figure out how to restructure this and what we need to discuss further on this. So we have motion second. Any discussion on that?
Sorry.
Sure.
how's this impact Dr. Register?
I just realized Dr. Register's here.
Because I know we had a hard time getting him on.
He's flexible. He can come back whenever. He's good.
He's doing this pro bono too, so I'm sure he appreciates you volunteering him.
We can collaborate. We can reach out and kind of collaborate and talk about next steps.
And that's something what I was thinking. I think at this point, we may be able to make some of the next steps without having him actually here with us. I think we've got to a point where we should be able to address most of this as a board. If we need to go any further, we can always tackle that. But I think we can set up a next meeting that he may not have to actually be here for us to decide where we want to go. But we'll work on that part. Again, any other discussion on that? All in favor of that motion, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, that did pass. That said, we can now take, was that a motion to adjourn? Okay, then we're done.